these sanctions are very, very important tools. They're obviously very powerful tools, as you've said. The sanctions that we put out on the oligarchs, the sanctions that we put out on the Russian politicians, those had the necessary impact. We had meetings all last week at the National Security Council, with Nikki and I participated in, on the overall strategy with Syria. We continue to refine the strategy. So I'm not going to go through the specifics, but we refined the strategy after Nikki made that announcement between Sunday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday. We refined the strategy, and we will continue to refine the strategy. We're not afraid to use these tools. We will use these tools, but we're not going to broadcast to the world our exact thinking on this.
She broadcast to the world. She must have gotten some indication from the White House that that was okay to say. They're coming from Treasury on Monday. Who called them off on Sunday?
Well, let me be clear. I was part of the decision to call them off, and that's something that we're very comfortable with.
Why did Nikki Haley not get that message?
I'm not going to go through specifics.
She was left twisting in the wind. That's the problem.
She wasn't left twisting in the wind. This was a fluid situation. The decision changed. Nikki is a terrific spokesperson for the administration. Situations change. You shouldn't read too much into this. There are classified issues. I'm not prepared to go through all these. As the president said, we're prepared to be very tough on Russia. We've been very tough. As you've said, these Russian sanctions were more impactful than anything before. And whether we use military tools or whether we use economic tools, we will constantly adjust these strategies based upon things that may be going on behind the scenes that we don't want to broadcast.
Here to react is anchor of Special Report on Fox News Channel, Bret Baier. Bret, does this really matter? A lot of people were talking about it, but more people would like to know why they were called off.
No, that was fascinating questioning, and your question about twisting in the wind, I mean, it's clear that's what was happening. I mean, she obviously was given the instruction that that's good to go, that's good to say. She wouldn't have said it. And she then later on comes out with this public quote saying, "I don't get confused." I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. So what happened between the time she's on Face the Nation and the next, few hours until they're called off? Clearly, the president made the final call. The Treasury Secretary may say he was a part of it, but the president made that call. And why was it made? Will those sanctions still come later? We don't know, and it didn't seem like the Treasury Secretary wanted to go down that road.
He did say, and he's right, they are working. The Russian stock market has gotten dinged hard, and the sanctions that were put down earlier on oligarchs and their companies, those companies' stocks in some cases are imploding. Rusal, which Oleg Deripaska, who is a very controversial figure, but he's an oligarch, he runs that. They can't sell their aluminum to the global market right now because of these sanctions. That part's working. But then the president was asked yesterday, and he said, we'll lay down more sanctions on Russia when they start to deserve them, or where they very much deserve them. Well, what more do they need to do to deserve them? Putin is still standing by Bashar al-Assad, who is a dictator and a murderer of his own civilians. And on top of that, Bret, they interfered with the U.S. elections. Don't they deserve them now?
So I think you're right, and I think there's a healthy dose of criticism that the administration is taking about not stepping further on the sanctions front. But I will say that this administration has done a lot, not just the sanctions that you mentioned, but also arming the Ukrainians, stepping up natural gas to Eastern Europe. It has not been inaction on the Russia front, and I think, just reading between the lines with this president, he's trying to walk the line between having some relationship with Russia and China and also stepping on their neck when they need to.
Let's get to Cuba. He came very close as possible, still standing on U.S. soil, to Cuba, which is undergoing a massive regime change. Do you get the sense from your sources that the president will continue to follow what President Obama had wanted to do, and that was open up relationships and keep that pipe going between the U.S. and Cuba after all these years of having it been closed? It's
a much different relationship with this administration and Cuba than the Obama administration and Cuba. And the fact that the Obama administration was the one that kind of opened it up suggests that President Trump is not one to follow in that footstep. Now, the change of leadership offers another opportunity that maybe there's a new negotiation, but I think it'll be much more firm on the U.S. side than it was in the Obama administration.
We are getting this breaking news. If you can just stay here, because you may want to comment on this. The State Department is reporting that Russia and Syria apparently tried to sanitize the suspected chemical weapons attack site in Douma, Syria. Now, we knew that somebody was keeping inspectors away from that site, but the State Department now is saying it has credible information that somebody tried to sanitize it, and that somebody is Russia and Syria. Is that enough then to kick these sanctions back into gear?
Maybe. You know, maybe that is the trigger. Maybe they were trying to figure out what exactly was happening on the ground and getting those weapons inspectors and chemical inspectors in. The fact that they've come to this conclusion and they're talking about it publicly suggests that they are very confident on what they know. They were confident on an intelligence perspective before going in, just talking privately to U.S. intelligence officials, but they were not making it public.
Nikki Haley, she's got to be annoyed right now overall.
I think, you know, she is well respected by this president. She seems to like her job. That moment was not one that probably she liked.
Well, she stood up for herself, and that was impressive. Bret, thank you very much. Thanks, Bret Baier, you can see him on Special Report, 6 p.m. Eastern on Fox News.